Good afternoon, everyone. Today I will be presenting a seminar on thematic apperception test. We will be going to the introduction, history. We will be having a brief discussion about what is an apperception test, then thematic apperception test, then we will see how to administer it. We will briefly go through the interpretation and then we will see the application, advantages, disadvantages, summary. Now introduction. So here I've put a few of the cards that are present and I've also distributed the cards that are there. So it is a type of projective test, and projective test is basically something that is ambiguous and open to interpretation, and it is supposed to bring out something that is there present in the subconscious mind of the person who's taking the test. So these are few of the cards. First, we'll go through the history. The tests were developed in 1930s. The TAT was developed by Henry A. Murray, and he was a Harvard psychologist, and Christian Morgan, an artist and a lay psychoanalyst in the early 1930s. Now, Murray and Morgan were influenced by the psychoanalytic approach and Carl Jung's work with archetypes. So, Carl Jung described people into different archetypes, as well as Murray's own interest in motives and needs. The idea for the test originated during Murray's work at Harvard Psychological Clinic, where he was exploring unconscious dynamics and personality. So the initial concept was that Murray believed that people's interpretation of ambiguous stimuli could reveal their unconscious motives, desire, conflicts, and personality traits. And Morgan's artistic skills were crucial in designing the original test images. These were deliberately vague and ambiguous, intended to provoke a range of emotions and cognitive responses. The first published version was in 1935, and it was in collaboration with the Harvard Psychological Clinic, and it was heavily influenced by Murray's personology theory, which proposed that human behavior is driven by internal needs and environmental presses. And the underlying assumption that was present was Murray and Morgan postulated that when individuals viewed ambiguous images, their responses would reflect their own unconscious thoughts, desires, and conflicts. This process was based on projection, a concept from Freudian psychoanalysis. So that's why it is a type of projective test. Now comes on to the story part. This is what the history is present. Now, how did TAT come into being? So there is a widely held belief that the idea for TAT emerged from a question asked by one of Murray's undergraduate students, Cecilia Roberts. She reported that when her son was ill, he would spend the day making up stories about images in magazines and asked Murray if pictures could be employed in clinical settings to explore underlying dynamics of personality. So Cecilia Roberts' son, who was ill, was at home. So he would see certain images in the magazine and then he would write stories about the pictures present in the magazine, that this was there and this is happening and this could happen. So Cecilia Roberts went to Murray and asked him that certain things or certain ambiguous images, could these be used to help in the understanding of a person? So that is where the idea, it is a widely held belief. So that the idea for the test came from there. Now Murray wanted to use a measure that would reveal information about the whole person, but found the contemporary test of his time lacking in this regard. So it is two things. What he had, he found that to be less adequate, and then there was this another concept that certain images, ambiguous images, could be helped in the form of developing a story to understand the person. Therefore, he created the TAT. The rationale behind the techniques is that people tend to interpret ambiguous situations in accordance with their own past experience and current motives, which may be conscious or unconscious. Murray reasoned that by asking people to tell a story about a picture, their defenses to the examiner would be lowered, as they would not realize the sensitive personal information they were divulging by creating stories. So when you're telling a story, oftentimes the guard that you're holding when other projective tests are given might be lowered down when you've started telling a story. Murray and Morgan sent the 1930s selected pictures from the illustrative magazines and developed the test. After three versions of the test, series A, B, C, Morgan and Murray decided on the final set of pictures, which was the series D, which remains in use today. After World War II, the TAT was adopted adopted more broadly by psychoanalysts and clinicians to evaluate emotionally disturbed patients. Later in the 1970s, the human potential movement encouraged the psychoanalysts to use the TAT to help their clients understand themselves better and stimulate personal growth. Now we'll come on to what is a perception test. Now we've seen what the history of it is, how the test came on to being, and what was the main motive of the test. But we don't know what exactly is an apperception test. So an apperception test is a type of projective psychological test that uses ambiguous stimuli such as images or abstract scenes to assess a person's perception, thought process and emotional responses. The term apperception refers to the process by which a person interprets and integrates new experience of their past experiences, personality and inner mental state. There are a few key features of the apperception test, mainly ambiguous stimuli, storytelling format and focus on the unconscious process. So here we have an ambiguous stimuli in the form of pictures. The format should be in the storytelling format, that individuals are often asked to tell a story or explain what is happening in the images. As you can see the images here also we will in the next slide we will see how to give instructions. We will tell the patients to ask how the person has reached this position, what is happening, what will happen and their feelings and emotions currently present of the person in the picture. So questions could be what is happening, what led to the situation, how do the characters feel or think and what will happen next. Focus on the unconscious process. So based on psychoanalytic theories, particularly Freud's concept of projection. This test explores motives, needs, emotional conflicts and personality dynamics. Now let's dive into the TAT test. So the total number of cards are 30 plus 1. So you have 30 pictures and one blank card. And the total time is 2 sessions of 50 minutes. So you can break down the 2 sessions into cards of 10-10 because you have to administer 10 cards in one session and each session is 50 minutes. So one card will take 5 minutes to administer and 5 minutes in which the person has to make the story and do everything like start to finish. It should be 5 minutes per card. And nature of the card is that it consists of 20 cards on which ambiguous pictures are presented. A lot of cards only have numbers. If you flip the card behind, you will see that only numbers are written, but some cards also have certain characters like 18GF. So 18GF will be like for girls or females. So 18GF. So M is for males, F is for females, B is for boys, BM is for boys or males and GF is for girls or females. Now how to administer the test. So this is one of the most important parts. The subject is seated comfortably on a chair facing the examiner. So the person should be in front of you. The atmosphere of the testing room should be nice, calm, quiet and free from any external disturbances. So probably not in like a ward or somewhere wherein there are a lot of people. You will have to take the patient into a secluded room wherein there is no external stimuli to the patient. The examiner establishes a rapport by being friendly. So you have to be friendly with the patient, develop a certain kind of rapport with the patient and ensure free reactivity. So instruction, after establishing the rapport, follow instructions are given in a steady and deliberate tone. Following instructions are given in a steady and deliberate tone. So you will say, I will present to you some pictured card one by one. You have to make a story on each one of them. I want to see your imagination and have an idea that how good you are at making stories. There are 4 points which you have to keep in mind while making stories on these pictures. So basically you'll tell him this, and the 4 points are: you have to describe the scene in the picture and give the reason for that situation. So you have to describe the past. So you can just pick up any card and you will have to describe the past. Then will be the present, wherein you have to tell what is happening at present in this picture. That will describe the present. Then there will be further, you have to tell who are in the picture and what they are feeling and thinking about. So this is the emotional component of the picture. So how many, there might be one person, there is one card which has a group of people and many cards which have two people. So you have to ask them what the people are feeling in the picture, what the people are thinking about in the picture. So A is how did they reach this, 2 is what they are doing at present in the picture, 3 is what they are thinking and feeling in the picture, and fourth one is what will happen later in the picture, so the future. So past, present, thoughts and feelings, and future. These are the 4 things that you have to test on. You have to say that you are free to make any kind of story and will be given approximately 5 minutes to complete one story. Then you have to ask, is everything clear, to make sure that whatever instructions that you have given, the person understands the instruction. And immediately after this, you say, you narrate the stories and I will write them down. Now most of the time, because these instructions have come from the Indian adaptation of TAT, we write, the person who's administering the test writes it down. But in oftentimes TAT is given in a form that the person taking the test only has to write it down. So in the Indian context, the person who's administering the test will write it down. After giving the above instructions, the examiner presents the first card and says, now this is the first picture, look at it carefully and make a story. Please keep in mind that you have to give the past, present, people's feelings and thoughts in the picture, and future or end of the story. After that, the the test taker will then start narrating it. And for the blank card which is given at the end, following instructions are given. Finally, this last card is blank. You can think of any scene on this card, keeping the same 4 points in mind. So there is a blank card, so 30 plus 1, 30 cards and one blank card. And on that blank card, it is supposed to give you in the end, saying ki whatever you can think of, whatever story you can make up, you have to make up the story. The above instructions should be adhered to as far as possible, but they may be altered in exceptional cases to suit the age, intelligence, personality, and mental state of the subject. The time limit may also be relaxed as and when necessary. But oftentimes, if the patient is taking a lot of time on one story, you have to again say that you only have 5 minutes. So wrap up, or wrap up the process and try to cover all the 4 points. Test responses. The recording of the responses includes writing down the tone, verbality of the stories narrated by the subject, and writing down the reaction time and total time of the story. The time is recorded with the help of stopwatch, which is kept away from the sight of the subject. When the subject is relating the story orally, the examiner tries to take down the exact words of the subject in addition to any question or comments or emotional expression like relentlessness, signs of blocking, anxiety, laughter, etc. that the patient might show. If the subject narrates the story too rapidly or indistinctively, he is asked to speak more slowly or more loudly, as the case may be. In the same way, if it is a long story, you can tell it to shorten it down. Now, sequence of cards. So a lot of ambiguity is there in how the cards should be administered in what sequence. But generally, this is something that has come forward in whatever research I have done. So administered to females and males in exact orders is image 1, 2, 3 bm, 4, 6 bm, 7 gf, 8 bm, 9 gf, 10, 13 mf, and then administered to any males and females. So this makes around the approximation of how the cards are supposed to be administered. Now this sequence you can change if you want to change the sequence depending on your own clinical judgment. Now enquiry. When the test taker will be telling the story, there are certain enquiries that you have to make sure that whatever interpretation you have gotten will be more thorough. So you have to inquire about the 4 aspects of instructions. So the 4 same things that we have seen, you have to make sure that you inquire about it. If the patient does not tell on his own, then you have to inquire about the plot. Ascertain from the subject if the plot in each story is borrowed one, reproduced from memory, or it is his real fantasy. So this will help us to understand if it is from a past experience, if it has been borrowed from some friends or some acquaintances story, or if it is one of his real fantasies. Then inquire about identification and empathy, the age of the main characters in the story, especially of the hero or heroes involved in the story, and also the character he liked the most and why. Examiner should also find out as to what led him to introduce a particular character or characters in the story and how he feels for them and whether they did the sensible thing. So there might be that while telling a story, there might be new characters that might be involved. So you have to ask the reason behind that also. Inquire about ambiguities. If there is something that requires some bit of clarity, you can clear that. Inquire about omissions. So there might be that certain part of the image is omitted. That also you can inquire about. Inquire about introduced contents. So an inquiry should be made about regarding objects, names and places which have been introduced in the story but are not present in the picture. Inquire about peculiarities of utterances, hesitation, rejection, pauses. And inquire about the most like and least like picture. So this last question comes at the end of the test. Now this is one format which can be administered. Here we can see that the places wherein the test is supposed to be written is already present. So this is one form in which the test taker will write it down, write the story on his own. Whereas in the Indian adaptation, what we do is we have a piece of paper and we give the TAT one by one, the cards one by one, and we write it down. Time measurement should begin when the first picture is presented and end when the subject begins his or her story. Recording a subject's complete responses should be recorded along with any noteworthy behavioral observation like exclamation, pauses, blushing, degree of involvement and change in voice inflections. And order of presentation mostly numerical as per sequence. So there are certain elements that we have to note down. There are certain basic details that you have to take from the patient. So this is a list of all the basic details that you are supposed to ask. You also have to know the reason for referral. You have to have some background information on the patient. You have to take the family history, personal history, behavioral observation and test administration. So these are the basic details that you have to take. This is a example of what things that can be written in the basic details. Now comes on to the analysis part. So majorly you have to analyze the form, analyze the content, analyze the needs, then you have to put everything together and then you have a final form. So in the analysis of form refers to how the storyteller said the stories, that how the story was narrated. It will include the power of the plot, organization, fantasies and imagination, language and verbal richness, and observation of details. So in the manual, you have detailed explanation of all of the headings that have been given over here. And according to them, that you have to note down whatever the interpretation is there. So you have to follow these headings for analysis of form. For analysis of content, content refers to what the subject narrated in his her stories. So type of content, the hero, other characters, thema as in the need of the story and the pressing things, and outcomes and the interpersonal relationships explored in the content of the story. Then comes the analysis of needs. So it is a 31 point structure in which you have to analyze 31 points. So it can be achievement, acquisition, aggression, construction, counteraction, dominance, exposition, recognition. So all of these are present. So these are total in 31 and this is the entire thing that is present. So you have to rate it 1 to 5 and then in the end you have to calculate the total, and depending on the total you have to say it if it is highly significant, if it is insignificant on that. There is also a rating present in the manual which tells us how much the significance is present. Then comes the integrated summary. Or after all the stories have been analyzed, you have to make an integrated summary about the intellectual level, emotional maturity, personal adjustment, social adjustment, dominant needs, significant conflicts, ego structure and basic structure of personality. So on all of these things, you have to rate and analyze the test taker. And the final report. Herein you have to make the final report of the entire interpretation, which will include form analysis, thematic analysis, significant conflicts, interpersonal relations, emotional adjustments, ego structure, and final summary. Now, where to compile all of the things that we have seen? So all of the things have to be compiled on something called as the TAT blank. TAT blank is consists of 8 pages, and every page that is present on the TAT blank has a certain significance and certain things that are supposed to be written on the TAT blank. So the cover page is meant for recording the personal detail of the subject and analysis of the form. So we saw the basic details that have to be taken down and analysis of the form based on the 5 headings that are present. On the second page will be analysis of content, wherein it provides space for recording each story separately, the type of content, hero identification, description of other characters, need, press, outcome, and interpersonal relations. So all of this goes on the second page. Third page will be for analysis of needs. The fourth and fifth page are meant to record the analysis of the dynamic structure of content, which has again been divided into 5 broad categories: significant conflicts and defenses, emotions and feelings, ego structure, basic traits of personality, other dynamic cues. And then the sixth page is the integrated summary under A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H and I categories that we have seen on the last slide. While the writing of the final report also begins from the same page and continues to the 7th and 8th page. So on the 6th page we will start writing the final report, which will then flow on to the 7th and 8th page. So this makes the 8 pages of TAT blank, which gives us the final summary or report. In order to be more accurate and objective in an intuition judgment about the inner state of the subject, the strength of each variety of needs, emotions and personality traits manifested by the hero is rated on a 5-point scale on the basis of their intensity, duration and frequency. This is the rating of the needs that we have seen. The slightest suggestion of a variable is given mark 1, whereas an intense form or the continued occurrence or repeated occurrence of a milder form is scored 5. And in between is 2, 3, 4 are given accordingly for immediate intensities of expression. So this is how you will rate from 1 to 5. Now discussion on various cards. So we will just go through a few of the cards that are present. So again we see that TAT material consists of 20 cards on which ambiguous pictures are presented. So out of the 31 cards you are supposed to choose 20 cards and administer them. So this is picture card number 3BM, wherein you can say that a boy is huddled next to a couch. On the floor next to him is an ambiguous object that could be a set of keys or a revolver. So based on this, the test taker will make up a story. You will write down the story, and on the various criteria you are supposed to analyze the story. So general discussion about this card. This is identified as one of the most useful pictures, for it concerns themes of guilt, depression, aggression and impulsive control. For example, if the object is described as a gun, it is used or intended to be used for A, intra-aggression, the subject is going to use it to damage oneself, or extra aggression, the subject has used it or is going to use it to damage or harm other person. So the person can represent it as keys, but he can also see it as a revolver, and then there might be intra-aggression or extra aggression. So all of these points we will find out from the story that the test taker has told us. This picture is particularly important for depressed patient, whether male or female, because it can reveal important dynamics regarding the manner in which the depression developed and how it is currently being maintained. So all of the cards have been selected and structured in a way to bring out certain things out of the patient's mind. It might be conscious or it might be from the subconscious. Now here, this is the only card wherein there is a group of people. So it is picture 2, country scene with a woman holding a book in the foreground. In the background, a man is working in a field while a woman watches. This is the only card in the series that presents the group scene and gives information relating to how the individual deals with challenges of people living together. So it might be that you might be handed over the TAT and asked that what you pick out a picture out of this, and then what interpretation or what is the importance of pictures. So these are certain cards which are important in the deck of 31 cards, which you can pick out and be like, this is the only group card, and or this is card, or the previous card that we saw is like the thing can be a revolver or keys. Then this card is picture 5. A woman is looking into a room from the threshold of a door. This picture often reveals information surrounding attitudes about the subject's mother in her role of observing and possibly judging behavior. It is important to note how the woman is perceived and how the situation is resolved. The card elicits paranoid fears of attack. Then this is picture 6BM. An elderly woman is standing parallel to a window, and behind her is a younger man with his face down. He is holding onto his hat. It usually proves to be a rich source of information regarding attitudes and feelings towards their mother or maternal figures in general. Then this is card 6GF. A young woman sitting on the edge of the sofa looks back over her shoulder at an older man with a pipe in his mouth who seems to be addressing her. So it looks like there is a man standing behind who's speaking to the woman sitting over there. This card was originally intended to be the female counterpart to the picture 6BM, which we just saw. And it was hoped that it too would elicit attitudes and feelings towards paternal figures. There it was maternal figures. Here it was expected that it will be towards paternal figures. However, because the two figures are often seen as about an equal age, the card frequently does not accomplish its intended purpose. When clear father-daughter plots are not discussed, the picture reflects the subject's style and approach to instructed heterosexual relationships. So here we can't make out, that it is a daughter-father relation. Now the reliability of TAT. The TAT involves complex, meaningful verbal material. Because of the complexity of this material, exact quantitative analysis is difficult. This issue is further complicated because there are so many different scoring systems. Reliability and validity for one system may not mean that adequate reliability will be present for another systems. Inter-scorer reliability across different scoring systems has generally been found to be good, ranging from between 0.37 and 0.90, with most reports of 0.85 or higher. And validity of the TAT. Reviewers of the TAT's validity have shown wide variability. One reviewer might be impressed by a correlation of 0.25, while others sees it as a highly deficient valid score. Research done on it likewise allows readers to project their biases, needs and expectations onto the TAT. What are the certain applications of TAT? It can be used for personality assessment. It can be used to help people express their feelings, to explore the themes related to person's life experiences, psychopathological assessment, and to evaluate crime suspect in forensic examination, or to screen candidates, especially for high stress jobs. So these are the 6 applications that we can see. What are the advantages? It offers access to covert and deeper structures of an individual's personality. So because it helps us bring out the subconscious thoughts and feelings of the person, values, needs, motives of the person, it can help us to understand the deeper structure of an individual's mind and personality. There is less susceptibility to faking because the purpose of projective test is usually disguised. So when you are giving the test taker does not know your entire intention, and in telling the story, a lot of barriers that the patient holds are broken down and intrinsically interesting and non-threatening. So when you are giving and telling the patient to make the story and telling him, I want to know how good you are at making up stories, how your imagination is. When you're telling all of these things, it usually becomes a very non-threatening and interesting thing also for the test taker. So even they get involved into the test taking part. Now, what are the disadvantages of the TAT test? The TAT test. A client story may be interpreted in different ways by different psychologists. So this is one of the main themes that we have seen, that there is a inter-scorer reliability problem with the with this test, that a psychoanalyst interpretation might be different from other psychoanalysis interpretation. There is no consistency across clinicians in terms of the number of cards used, the order of presenting the cards, instructions, scoring, and interpretive principles. So we can see that it is supposed to be 20 cards, but a lot of people administer only 10, 14, 16. So this also changes according to the test, or according to the guy who is, according to the person who is administering the test. There is no single dominant scoring system and no norms are available for the measure. Sensitive to situational variables such as mood, stress, sleep deprivation, and differences in instruction. The effectiveness of the technique is often more dependent on the clinician's individual skill than on the quality. The validity and reliability of TAT are less well established due to lack of uniformity in administrating, scoring, and interpretation. And Murray himself stated that the conclusion must be regarded as good leads or working hypothesis to be verified by other methods. And the last one is that it is quite difficult to learn and to use the TAT because of so many different things we have to analyze. In summary, I would say that TAT is a very good test to help us understand certain things that might not be directly told to us by the patient, or something that might be in the subconscious mind of the patient. But there are some reliability issues. There are inter test taker and inter scorer differences which can be seen. So we should take this test as more of a lead to further explore the patient or try to find out certain things that are hidden in the patient. Thank you, and these are my references.